The prison yard fell silent as Marcus Chen walked toward the central courtyard. It was 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and every inmate in Blackridge Maximum Security Penitentiary knew what was about to happen. 300 men had stopped their routines, stopped their conversations, stopped breathing. They formed a loose circle around the courtyard, a human arena carved from concrete and razor wire. Marcus was 42 years old, lean and unremarkable in his orange jumpsuit. His black hair was graying at the temples, and his face bore the quiet exhaustion of a man who had seen too much. He had been in Blackridge for exactly 6 months, serving a life sentence for a crime he didn't commit, or so he claimed. In prison, everyone was innocent. Everyone had a sob story. But Marcus was different in one crucial way. He was about to die, and he knew it. At the far end of the courtyard stood Diego, the bull, Mendoza, flanked by his lieutenants. The bull was a mountain of a man, 6'6", 280 pounds of muscle and scar tissue. He controlled Cell Block C with an iron fist, and for 6 months, he had been waiting for this moment. Marcus had made a fatal mistake 2 weeks ago. He had refused to join the bull's crew, refused to pay protection money, and worst of all, he had humiliated one of the bull's enforcers in the cafeteria by calmly deflecting a shank attack and walking away. No one humiliated the bull's people and lived. Today, the bull announced, his voice echoing across the yard, "We teach this fish what happens when you disrespect the family." The guards had mysteriously disappeared from their towers. Warden Hayes had been paid well to look the other way for exactly 20 minutes. In Blackridge, rebellions could be purchased like cigarettes. Marcus stood in the center of the courtyard, hands at his sides, breathing slowly. His eyes were closed. To the watching inmates, he looked like a lamb accepting slaughter. "Last chance, Chen. Kneel, kiss my boots, and maybe, I'll let you live as my bitch." Marcus opened his eyes. They were dark, bottomless pools of something the inmates couldn't quite identify. Not fear, not anger, something ancient. "No," Marcus said simply. The bull laughed, a sound like grinding stone. He gestured, and 30 men stepped forward. Not 3, not 5, 30. They carried shanks fashioned from toothbrushes, sharpened pieces of metal, and improvised clubs. This wasn't meant to be a fight. It was meant to be an execution, slow and brutal, a message written in blood for every inmate in Blackridge. The first wave attacked. 5 men rushed Marcus simultaneously from different angles, a coordinated assault that should have ended in seconds. Marcus moved. His body seemed to dissolve and reform 3 feet to the left. The first attacker's shank cut empty air. Before the man could process what happened, Marcus's palm struck his solar plexus, not a punch, but a precise thrust that looked almost gentle. The attacker collapsed, gasping, unable to breathe, his diaphragm paralyzed. The second man swung a metal pipe at Marcus's head. Marcus leaned back, the pipe missing by millimeters, and his hand shot out in a strange whipping motion, fingers rigid and curved like a bird's talon. They struck the attacker's throat with surgical precision. The man dropped the pipe and fell to his knees, clutching his neck, his face turning purple.
"What the fuck?" someone whispered. The third, fourth, and fifth attackers converged together. Marcus moved between them like water flowing through rocks. His movements were unlike anything the inmates had ever seen. Not boxing, not street fighting, not even the martial arts they'd seen in movies. His body moved in spirals and curves, always off-center, never where the attacks landed. His strikes came from impossible angles, elbows bending backward, knees rising in circular arcs, fingers jabbing at points on the body that made men collapse as if their strings had been cut. In 12 seconds, all 5 attackers were down. None were dead, but all were incapacitated, writhing in agony or simply unable to move. The courtyard erupted in chaos. "Rush him!" the bull roared. "All of you, now!" 25 men charged at once, a tidal wave of bodies and blades. The smart inmates backed against the walls, suddenly understanding they were witnessing something extraordinary, something forbidden. Marcus dropped into a stance they couldn't name, knees bent, one hand raised with fingers spread like claws, the other hand low and open. His breathing changed, becoming deeper, rhythmic. When he exhaled, vapor seemed to rise from his skin despite the warm afternoon. He moved into the crowd. What happened next would be discussed in Black Ridge for years. Marcus's body became a weapon of perfect geometry. He struck pressure points with millimeter accuracy, spots under the arms that made hands go limp, points on the neck that caused instant unconsciousness, locations on the legs that severed nerve signals and made men crumple as if their strings had been cut. He used leverage and momentum, turning the attacker's force against themselves. A man would lunge with a shank, and Marcus would redirect the blade into the thigh of the man behind him. Another would swing a club, and Marcus would guide it into the skull of a third attacker. He broke arms with moves that looked like gentle redirections. He shattered kneecaps with kicks that appeared to barely make contact. His fingers found eyes, throats, nerve clusters, each touch precisely calibrated to disable, without killing. But it was the movements themselves that were most disturbing. Marcus's fighting style violated the normal mechanics of combat. He bent and twisted in ways that should have been anatomically impossible, as if his bones were flexible, his joints multidirectional. He seemed to anticipate attacks before they happened, moving preemptively, always one step ahead. Within 3 minutes, 20 men were down. The remaining 5 hesitated, finally understanding the trap they'd walked into. These weren't the movements of a prisoner. This was something else entirely. "What the hell are you?" one of them gasped. Marcus didn't answer. His face remained serene, almost meditative, even as sweat dripped down his temples. The bull watched from his position, his expression shifting from confidence to confusion to something approaching fear. He grabbed the last 5 men and shoved them forward. "Finish him! I'll pay each of you $1,000!"
They attacked with desperate courage. Marcus flowed between them like smoke. His counterattacks were devastating. A palm strike that sent one man flying backward into the prison wall, an elbow that shattered another's collarbone, a sweep that took 3 men down simultaneously. And then there was only the bull. The massive gang leader stood alone in the center of the courtyard, surrounded by his fallen crew. His face was red with rage and something he hadn't felt in 20 years. Genuine fear. "I'm going to tear you apart," he growled, pulling out a foot-long shank that gleamed in the afternoon sun. He charged, using his 300 pounds like a battering ram. Marcus waited until the last possible second, then moved. His body twisted impossibly, spiraling around the bull's charge like a matador with a bull. As the bull passed, Marcus's hand shot out and struck 3 points on the bull's massive back in rapid succession. Tap, 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 each touch barely visible. The bull took 3 more steps, then his legs buckled. He crashed to the concrete face first, the shank skittering away. He tried to rise, but his arms wouldn't respond. He tried to speak, but his voice came out as a whisper. What did you do to me?" Marcus stood over him, breathing normally, not even winded despite the 3-minute battle against 30 armed men. "Dim Mac," Marcus said quietly. "The death touch. Except I didn't kill you. I just turned you off for a while. You'll regain function in about an hour, maybe." He raised his voice so the entire courtyard could hear. "I studied Hek Fu Moon, the forbidden art, for 23 years under Master Liang in the mountains of Wudang.
The Chinese government outlawed it in 1952 because practitioners were considered too dangerous, weapons that couldn't be controlled. When Master Liang died, he made me promise to never reveal the art, never teach it, never use it except to preserve life. I broke that promise today because you left me no choice. The bull tried to respond, but only managed a gurgling sound. Marcus looked around the courtyard at the sea of shocked faces. I'm not a fighter. I'm a teacher. I taught mathematics at a community college in San Francisco until I was framed for my wife's murder by a corrupt district attorney who needed a conviction. I've spent 6 months trying to survive in here peacefully, but you people wouldn't let me. Sirens began to wail. The guards were discovering the rebellion. Marcus walked toward the entrance to cell block C, stepping carefully over the groaning bodies. At the doorway, he paused and turned back. Tell everyone what happened here. Tell them Marcus Chen is off limits. Tell them I want nothing. No territory, no crew, no power. I just want to serve my sentence in peace while my lawyer works on my appeal. Anyone who disturbs that peace will end up like you. He pointed at the bull, still paralyzed on the ground. And Diego, when you can move again, you're going to protect me. Because if I die in here, I've arranged for a very detailed confession about your operation to reach the FBI. Guard murders, drug trafficking routes, everything. You're going to make sure I stay alive until I'm exonerated. Understand? The bull's eyes bulged with impotent rage, but he managed a slight nod.
The aftermath was extraordinary. 31 men required medical attention. None died, but several would have permanent disabilities, paralyzed limbs, damaged organs, mysterious neurological problems the prison doctors couldn't diagnose. The official report called it a gang-related riot and placed all blame on the Bull's crew. Marcus Chen returned to his cell and sat on his bunk, staring at his hands. They were trembling. Not from exertion, but from the weight of breaking his master's sacred oath. That night, he dreamed of Master Liang, a wizened old man with a beard that reached his chest and eyes that could see through lies. You broke your promise, student, Master Liang said in Mandarin. I know, Shifu. I'm sorry. Are you? You survived. You protected yourself. Was that not what I taught you? You taught me that Hak Fu Moon exists to protect life, not to display power. I violated that principle today. Master Liang smiled, a sad, knowing smile. No, Marcus, you forgot the most important lesson. Hak Fu Moon exists to protect life, including your own. You are alive. Those 30 men are alive. The art preserved life today, as it was meant to. But I broke the vow of secrecy. Secrecy is meaningless if you're dead. You think I kept the art secret to hoard it like a miser? No, I kept it secret because the world wasn't ready for such power. But you, Marcus, you've shown today that power wielded with restraint, with precision, with mercy, is not something to fear. You turned off 30 attackers without killing a single one. That is mastery. That is the true heart of Hak Fu Moon. Marcus woke with tears on his face. 3 months later, new evidence emerged in Marcus Chen's case. A witness came forward, a woman who had seen the real killer. A junkie named Terry Walsh fleeing Marcus's home the night of the murder. DNA evidence was retested with more advanced technology. Marcus's conviction was overturned. On the day of his release, as he walked through the prison gates in civilian clothes, he saw the Bull watching from a window in cell block C. The gang leader raised one hand, not in threat, but in acknowledgement. Respect. Marcus nodded back. Outside the gates, a young man with a notepad approached him.
a journalist. "Mr. Chen, is it true you single-handedly fought off a prison riot? Is it true you know some kind of forbidden martial art?" Marcus looked at him for a long moment. "I'm a mathematics teacher. I'm looking forward to going home and returning to a quiet life. That's all. But the rumors are just rumors. Prison is full of them." He walked away, leaving the journalist confused. But that night in his small apartment in San Francisco, Marcus set up a simple website. No name, no address, just a message. "To those who seek the way, the forbidden art exists, not to harm, but to protect, not to conquer, but to preserve. If you have walked through darkness and emerged with your humanity intact, if you have touched violence and chosen mercy, if you understand that true strength is restraint, perhaps you are ready to learn. Perhaps the world is ready to remember." He included an encrypted email address. Within a week, he had 500 messages. Marcus smiled. Master Liang's art would not die with him. It would evolve. It would spread, but only to those who understood its true purpose. In the end, the rebellion at Black Ridge Maximum Security had accomplished something no one intended. It had revealed a secret that the world needed at exactly the moment the world was ready to receive it. And in a quiet mountain monastery in China, an old man who had been dead for 7 years smiled in his eternal rest. The art would continue. 5 years later, a documentary titled "The Forbidden Art Unveiled" premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. It featured interviews with former inmates, medical experts analyzing the mysterious injuries from the Black Ridge riot, and historians tracing the legend of Huck Fu Moon through centuries of Chinese history. The film ended with footage of Marcus Chen teaching a small class in a nondescript gym in Oakland. His students ranged from trauma survivors to abuse victims to military veterans with PTSD. He taught them not to fight, but to survive, not to attack, but to neutralize, not to kill, but to preserve life, especially their own. When asked why he finally revealed the art he'd sworn to keep secret, Marcus gave a simple answer. "Master Liang taught me that some promises must be broken for greater promises to be kept. I broke my vow of secrecy to honor my vow to protect life. The world needs Huck Fu Moon now, not as a weapon, but as a shield, not for the strong to dominate, but for the vulnerable to survive." The last frame of the documentary showed Marcus's hands, scarred, gentle, powerful, forming the opening stance of Huck Fu Moon. And across the world, thousands learned to protect themselves, and in doing so, learned that true strength was never about hurting others. It was about refusing to be hurt and refusing to become the thing that hurt you.